Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a complete student management system in C with full file handling, meaning all your data is saved even after you close the program. This is perfect for beginners learning structs, arrays, and file input output in C programming. So let's break it down line by line and understand how this code works. So in my IDE, I have imported three libraries. So make sure you import this first before we start building student management system. So again, the student management system allows us to add, display, search, and update student records, then save them to a file called student.txt. So this is our student.txt file. So it has already a data. So we need to use this file to load this data to our console and save whenever the user inputted a new data, and that inputted data will be stored in this student.txt. So again, this uses structs, functions, and a menu system inside our main function. So let's start from the top. So here we define a struct student, a custom data type that stores information for each student. Each student has an ID, a name, a course, and a grade. So these fields allow us to treat each student as a single object. Next, we declare all our functions like add student, display students, and so on before the main function. So this lets our compiler know these functions exist even before they are defined later in the file. Right, after defining our struct, we have these function declarations, also called function prototypes. They tell the compiler that these functions exist somewhere below in our code, even if they are not yet defined. So it's like giving the compiler a heads up, like, hey, later on you'll see a function called addStudent that takes a list of students and a count pointer. So without these declarations, if we try to call addStudent in main function before the compiler has seen its full definition will get an error. So remember this rule, always declare your functions at the top if you plan to define them later in your code. This keeps your main function clean and readable and your logic organized below. So now that we have declared all the functions we'll use, let's move on to the main function where everything starts. So inside the main function, we create an array students to hold up to 100 records and a counter to count count to track how many students are currently stored. So again, inside the main function, we create an array students to hold up to 100 records and a counter count to track how many students are currently stored. So there's a function load from file is called at the start, so it reads existing records from student.txt. So you can see two records inside in our student.txt file. Those are what we need to load. So that we can continue where we left off. So then we display a simple menu and take the user's input using scanf. The getChar function here clears the new line characters from the input buffer to avoid unwanted skips later. So each menu option calls a specific function. Let's say option 5 saves everything and exits the loop. The program continues until you choose save and exit. Next, we'll create an add student function. So if the same ID exists, we stop, so no duplicates allowed. So we're gonna use a for loop function here. So we iterate every array of students. If the same ID exists, we stop, no duplicates allowed. So this function stores the new student in the array and increment the account. The record is now temporarily saved in the memory. Next, we'll do the display function. So we have built a display function. This function prints a formatted table of all students. It uses format specifiers like percentage 20s for alignment. So you can use this for aligning, making sure your table is very clean. So when you're displaying a student, if we call this function, let's say if the students has no record list, it prints a message. Next, we'll create a function that searches a student by student ID. So this function searches the student array for a given ID. So what this code do is it will loop through all records, and if a matching ID is found, we print a student's info. Otherwise, we print that no student was found. Now we're done creating a function to search student by ID. We'll create a function that updates a student's grade. So this code lets the user change a student's grade using their ID. So we're gonna create a loop, so iterate through the students array. We'll check if the student exists. So if the student exists, we'll update a grade. If the student does not exist, we'll print a message that student is not found. So it will accept two parameters, so an array of students and count. So we initialize found, declare two variables. So ID, this is used when the user prompts an ID. So float a new grade is also allows our user to input a grade and store it in this variable. So this will print enter student ID to update grade, then prompts the user to input an ID. So after inputting the ID, we're gonna use a loop. So by using loop, we're gonna iterate to the array of students here. So and there's an if condition inside of the for loop. So this checks if students array index that ID is equal to the ID. So if this condition is true, this will execute this code. So it will print new grade, displays the name, and a scanf function to allow our user to input a new grade for this selected student. So after inputting a new grade, it will store to our students index that grade new grade. Then it will print grade updated successfully, then our found variable here will be updated to 1. So if if the student is if the student does exist, this will execute the loop and it will eventually break our loop. So it will prevent looping every numbers of students in our array. So if the student is found, we update to 1, then it will check here. If student is not found, student will print ID not found. So we're done creating a function for updating a student by ID. Next, we're going to create a function that save records to file. So this function opens the student.txt here in line 178. We open our student.txt. We'll check if the file does exist. So if the file does not exist or if it is null, so we're going to display an error saving file. So if the file does exist, we're going to use this loop. So every time we create a student, we need to call this function save to file, pass the array of students and then the count. Then here in for loop, we're gonna iterate each of the student, then we're gonna use a fprintf, so it will print next line for each student records. So once done, we close the file to save the data permanently. So this is the function to save the file. For load function, so finally we created a function load from file. This reads each line from the file and parses the data using fscanf. So it fills up our array and updates the count. So if the file doesn't exist yet, it simply starts with 0 students. So remember, if your file does not exist any data, it will start at 0. So you have an empty array of students for now. So next, we already implemented all our codes and the functions and its features. Let's actually run this program and see it in action. So we have an error here. So we have many student errors. So we have another error here. So okay, here we displayed now our menu system. Let's start by adding a new student record. So I'll choose option 1. So enter a student ID, name, PSID course, then grade. So the program ends. So there are many issues. Okay, it's supposed to be not equal to 5 so that our program will keep running. So let's try to run it again. So add student record. So our student recorded ID successfully, then it will display again our menu system. So again, I enter the student ID's name, course, and grade. The program confirms that the record was added successfully. So about let's add one more student for testing. So add student record. So yeah, okay, it works. Our so nice. So the student add the so nice, it works. So student recorded added successfully. So our feature add student record is working properly. Next, we're gonna display all students. So when we input the choice 2 for displaying all students, it will display perfectly. So there's a reason. So there's just a little bit of issue here because we have a long digit numbers here, so that's why it adjusted the name, course, and the grade values. So overall, our displays all student features working properly. Let's try another feature, which is search student by ID. So enter student ID to search. So let's try finding Jane Doe. So we'll put ID 1002. So our student found. So it prints the student details. So it has his ID, name, course, and grade. So let's try searching different student. Let's say John Doe. So yeah, it works perfectly. So search student by ID is good. Next, we're gonna use the update student grade. So we enter a choice 4. So enter student ID to update grade. So first we need to find the student by ID. So once the student ID exists, we'll update its grade. So let's say we're gonna update John Doe's grade to 80.76. So first we need to enter student ID to update grade. So enter a new grade for John Doe. Let's say 80.96. So grade updated successfully. So let's display again. So for John Doe, his grade is 80.96. So when we choose, so next our last feature is save and exit. So all of our data here must be saved in our student.txt file. So once our program ends, we rerun it again, the data all still persist. So let's try save and exit. So it will display all records saved exiting program. So if we exit, then rerun our program again, then we're gonna display all students. Good, our records are still there. It doesn't erase because it was saved from our student.txt file. And that's our complete student management system in C, fully working even after you close the program. So you now understand not only how to manipulate structures and arrays, but also how to handle real-world data using files. So this kind of logic is the foundation for building larger systems, from school databases to employee management tools. So one day, if you already learn so much about coding fundamentals or programming fundamentals, you can also proceed at databases, where every list of records will be stored in a database. So if you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below what project you want me to break down next. Thank you for watching, and happy coding.